So, the book of Esther. Well, let's start, by considering who's in our story. And we'll start with King Xerxes. Now, historians, not just like in the Bible, but historians think that the king in this book of Esther is actually Xerxes the first. It's difficult to tell because Xerxes the second is his son, and Xerxes is used quite a lot of the times. It's a bit like Henry's and Edwards and Williams over here, really. Royal names. So he is, I think, to be fair, a little bit extravagant. He likes to show off his wealth. He likes to show off how grand he is. He throws a party for a very long time. He likes his alcohol and he allows everybody to drink freely. So he might be a little bit drunk at the beginning of our story, after days and days of drinking. But the Bible isn't the only place that they've written about Xerxes. The Greeks also wrote about Xerxes. They fought some wars with him, and they won. So the Greeks get to tell us exactly how they think he is. But we do have to be careful with how the Greeks write about things in history, because they like to be a little bit creative, shall we say, with their version of history. So, as they describe Xerxes, they describe him coming to fight the Greeks. And they come across a river, and they've got to cross this river, which is quite big. So he arranges for people to build bridges with boats. And there's a big storm, and the bridge sinks, so they don't get across the river. So he decides that he has to punish the builders, so he does, and he kills them all. But not only does he have to punish the builders, he has to punish the river. So he gives the river 300 lashes, he brands it with a hot iron, so he gets all his soldiers to shout at the river, and then he throws chains into it to imprison it and make sure that it knows exactly how to behave as a river. What's interesting is he then goes and fights the Greeks, loses, and on the way back, the bridge that he's built has been destroyed by a storm again. Xerxes. He likes to think he can control men and nature. He kind of sees himself a bit like a god. But what we discover is that he actually is dependent on other people. He doesn't actually make decisions for himself. Then we have Queen Vashti. Now, she is unusual. She is the queen. She's quite different to a concubine or a mistress or anything else like that. And so when Xerxes wants to show her off, she rightly says, no, I'm the queen. I'm not just somebody you can show off to your drunken friends. You have the eunuchs who are able to kind of speak into Xerxes' ears. You have the 7 nobles of the kingdom who were there at the party and who Xerxes actually listens to, and they offer some bad advice quite often. But their wives are probably at the Queen's party at the same time. So they know they're in trouble, which is probably why they suggest that Vashti is sent away, leaving a hole in our story for a new queen, Esther. Now, she wasn't to be queen like Vashti. She was there to be a show queen, someone he could pull out when he needed a show queen, to show off, to be treated not like a queen, like Vashti. She wouldn't be able to say no. She would have to come out and look pretty and show off. But Esther is actually her Persian name. She was a family that had been in exile for many generations. We are talking about 4 generations. She is almost, you would say, fully Persian, but she's a Jew at the same time. Her great-great-grandparents probably came when the Babylonians invaded Israel. And it's not clear as to who is raising her, other than his name is Mordecai and he is a relative. Depending on which book you read or which translation you read, he's either a cousin or an uncle. And that is Mordecai. And he is the 4th generation living in exile. They are, both Mordecai and Esther, are clearly used to Persian life. They live in Susa, they know, and they are part of everything. They look the part. So it's easy to blend in, to hide the fact that they are Jewish. So why have all these games about things that are hidden and things that aren't there? Well, in the story of Esther, there are two kind of things that are hidden. One thing that is hidden is Mordecai and Esther's faith. At one point, Mordecai actually tells Esther to hide it, to keep it hidden, to keep who she is and who she believes in hidden away. Don't tell anybody. And when we go through the story, we discover that actually people don't know that Mordecai is a Jew either. So when he refuses to bow down to Haman, it's only when people ask him, why don't you bow down too? That he is able to say, because of the God I follow. He looks, and Esther looks, Persian. They don't look Jewish. I don't think they necessarily ate the right foods. And everything about them would say they aren't Jewish. Apart from on the inside, they have a faith and a relationship with God. Haman hadn't even noticed, if you read the story carefully, that Mordecai wasn't bowing to him until somebody goes up and goes, by the way, have you seen that bloke over there? He's not bowing to you. Oh, and also he's Jewish. Haman had to have it pointed out to him. It's all kind of hidden. And then the storm really breaks, and Esther has to reveal who she is to the king. She has to come forward and go, but this is who I am. I am a Jew, and this is the God I follow. I am not who you thought I was. Their faith had been hidden, but God knew who they were and knew their faith. But the other thing that is hidden in the story of Esther is God. At no point in the book of Esther is God's name mentioned. It's not there. But if you read the book of Esther, you can't help but trip over God. It's a bit like the game Taboo, where it's there, but the word isn't spoken. You can read it and you can understand it, and you come to this conclusion that God is from the beginning of the book all the way through the end. God is there. He has his hand holding this couple, these people, this nation, this group of families that is Israel in his hand, even though it's not mentioned, hidden in the book of Esther. And God is there because you see what is known as coincidences or God incidences. Things change around. At one point, everything is looking really bleak. Haman has got the idea of actually being able to kill Mordecai. Esther is going to be caught up in the massacre of all the Jews. And then you have that really weird God incident where King Xerxes goes, I can't get to sleep. And so he calls for someone to read from his diary of everything that's ever happened to him and all the things. And it just so happens that the man stands up to read from the page that happens to have all about Mordecai saving Xerxes' life. There's all these coincidences that seem to be falling into place. And just after he's gone, so who have we done anything to kind of say thanks for saving my life to Mordecai? No, nothing's written down here. Excellent. Who should walk in but Haman? What a transformation. Xerxes doesn't explain who it is that he wants to praise and lift up. Haman thinks it's him. Turns out to be Mordecai. The man who wants to kill Mordecai ends up having to walk round going, everybody celebrate Mordecai. Isn't he amazing? How embarrassing would that? What a transformation. What a complete turnaround of situations. These coincidences don't just happen, but God's hand is there all the way through. And in the middle of the storm, I imagine as Mordecai is sat there thinking, this is really weird, I'm not sure why I'm on a pony getting walked around the streets, when actually this guy wants to kill me. Whether he realised God's hand was in the situation. Or whether Esther, when she was praying and fasting about having the courage to go and see Xerxes, knowing that if she walks in and he says, I'm in a bad mood today, go away, you're dead, whether God's hand is there. But there she is, and God's hand is in every situation. And as much as that storm must have felt overwhelming and uncontrollable and beyond their hands and nothing they could do about it, God was there holding them. God was there transforming the situation. So much so that Mordecai becomes kind of number one in control, and the person who is able to talk into Xerxes' ear. Xerxes at the beginning has the 7 nobles who are kind of whisper in his ear and tell him things to do which are just sound crazy and daft and involve things like sending his wife away because their wives might think that they're not in charge, to now having Mordecai whispering in his ear and bringing God's justice, because Mordecai followed God, into the whole of Persia. What a transformation that is when you see the difference from the beginning to the end. But it would only be as you look back on the story that you can see God's hand. It's only when it's highlighted and ringed like the pandas or the Oscar that you can really see where God has been at work in the story of Esther. And sometimes in our lives, it feels like what we're going through is overwhelming, and it's difficult to see where God's hand is in our lives. And it's at those points we need to be like Esther. It's at those points we need to be like Mordecai and come in prayer and trust and step out knowing that in the situation, although we can't see it, God is there. Now, I don't know everybody's story here yet. I don't know how your weeks have been. I don't know what you are facing or what the future might be. I don't know what storms are ahead or what storms people are going through. But God is there and we can come to him. And it may be that like the people of Israel who celebrate Purim, that we can celebrate God's hand as we look back and see how God has rescued us. And it may mean, like them, that actually the consequences of things doesn't change completely. We still have to go through the struggle and the trial, but the outcome is different. There's still pain ahead, but the outcome is different. There is opportunity for celebration and joy. Heavenly Father, we thank you that you are with us in the storm. And Lord, whilst we don't know what the outcome is going to be, we can trust in you, for you are a good and gracious God. And Lord, for the times when we have forgotten to call on you, we turn and call on you now. Come into our storms. Let yourself be known. Amen.